Hey Adam, how's it going today?
Good, good. Thanks for having me.
Well, thanks
How
for
you
coming
doing?
out. I'm doing good. I'm doing good. We're gonna talk about a lot of things today. We're gonna talk about right before your eyes, but I have to say, your acting career has really been heating up. There's a lot going on, and I want to get into all that. But one of the things I love to ask actors is where you started. Like, how did you start in acting and sort of make that decision that this was going to be the path for you?
Um, so yeah, I had a theater background. I was somebody that was kind of always. I grew up singing. I had singers in my family. My grandfather was an off-Broadway actor, um, and he was a guy that would come around every so often and live with us in Jamison, Pennsylvania. And he would teach me how to sing, and we would sit on my porch and sing old show tunes. And it just the first play I actually did was in elementary school, and I taught one of those show tunes to my whole kindergarten class, and we performed it for the school. So kind of fast forward to the seventh grade. I'm an athlete, uh, kind of like High School Musical before High School Musical was a thing. My principal had heard that I was a singer and they were doing Bye Bye Birdie. So I was kind of forced on stage. I auditioned, but the part was kind of mine because I was a singer and an advanced singer. And Conrad didn't have any parts, so if I stunk too bad, it wasn't gonna. We could cover it up with the gold costume and nod of the head. But so we pulled it off, and I was just hooked, man. I was hooked on the adrenaline. It was like kind of augmented everything I was doing in sports. It was like scoring a touchdown, and it was interesting, and I never stopped. So
So you were an athlete and you were a theater guy. Like it was
yeah,
both
I
things
was
for
the
you.
captain of the football team in one of the best football states in the country. Like two of our high school football coaches from this area coach in the NFL. It was and I was leaving uh one of my proteges that actually became my little big brother actually did 10 years in the NFL, and he was the same way. But it was very welcomed in my area, theater and arts. It was very, it was accepting. It was, Bucks County is known, Doylestown is particularly known for artists. Pink is from my hometown. Justin Guarini's from my hometown. Both friends. I mean, I met Pink a few times, but Justin's a very good friend. So the moral of the story is like I went to college on football scholarship, and my minor was theater, but I was always afraid to do it. It was just something that didn't seem realistic to me. So
Did you
what
just
I
think
need,
it wouldn't pan out into a career? Was that sort of the struggle
I,
you
I
had?
actually I had other people's opinions in the back of my head more than anything, and the reality, what actually happened was I was an intern to get my degree. The last thing I had to do was intern, and I happened to get NBC 10 in Philadelphia, which is a big, it's like the biggest market in. I think it's like fourth in the country. So I was actually a sports department guy. I logged the highlights for the Phillies and the Eagles, and but when my advisor came to check on me, she said, "How's it going? They want to hire you full time." And I said, I pointed to the Law and Order poster on the wall. I said, "That's what I want to do," because NBC Law and Order. And she goes, "Well, that's what you got to do." So, um, fortune had it that I met a guy whose daughter was actually on Broadway, and she was Baby Gypsy. She was Louise and Gypsy, and he was just this eternal acting student, the father, and he was a friend of mine. And I just happened to jump into the acting class that he was in New York City, and Vincent D'Onofrio from everything Law and Order, Platoon. I mean, Full Metal Jacket. He was the assistant teacher. He became my full time teacher. So that's kind of the long or the short of it, the fast forwarded version of how it happened. And then there's sobriety in there too. The fact that I was a kid that came from a bar and uh, I had some issues with alcohol. So I was sober at that point, like 4 or 5 years. So it was like any fear that I carried around with me, it was all gone. It was like the world was my oyster, and the
So
opportunity.
so so I want to talk about that because what you just brought up, going through a struggle like that, when struggling with alcohol and making the decision to get better. How did you overcome that? Because I know that was something that started kind of young for you, and then by the time you hit college, it seems like that was the time frame around then that you started to take action on that. What was it that made you want to get better, and how did you get better?
Yeah, I don't think it was. I mean, definitely there was a want. Like I sought out a counselor and I told her how much I was carrying on, and she said that I was lucky to be alive. And it was kind of like one little thing led to another, where people would say things to me that it became a reality. Until then, it was just like I felt like, maybe this thing was passing me by, because there was a history of it in my family, and there were sober people in a program that are very close to me. But I thought it maybe would pass me by, but it clearly wasn't at that point. Like, I was drinking alcoholically in high school, and there were a lot of decisions back then to this day, like, are my worst regrets. I try not to carry too much, but I was a very, very gifted athlete, and I goofed up quite a bit in some pretty big spots. But so it just kind of dogged me until I was 21, and I sought out a meeting, and I didn't get sober right away. It was about 11 months, but I was still a freshman. 21, living in the dorms. Wow. And yeah, so it was just time. It was either get sober or, and I was the first of like 40 family members to be in college. So I started to pray, man. And that's the reality of it. Nothing changed until I prayed to something that I didn't at that point really feel was tangible or understand. But it was when I prayed, and they call it the third step prayer, that I started to see the world in color, and everything that, if somebody was laughing in a fellowship, I didn't feel like they were laughing at me. I started to understand the message, if that makes sense. So like I said,
do you think
world
you would have been
up.
able to do that without prayer? Do you think it would have been possible for you to overcome that without prayer, or was it really sort of the centerpiece for you of that recovery?
I mean, listen, I study the human condition, and I kind of always have before I was even taught to do that by like very good actors, people that make more than enough of a living at this. So like I've noticed people that are agnostic that do get sober, and they just don't seem to have the joy necessary to to have meaningful relationships. So for me, it was a divine intervention, and like it continues to happen in my life. But it doesn't mean I don't have struggles. I've gotten away from God multiple times due to tragedy, life-altering tragedies. But the reality is, that is the one thing that I know for a fact that is what got me sober, and I'm very grateful.
That's powerful. And I want to talk about some of the other things you've gone through. And it seems like the roles you take are really fascinating, and the things you've gone through, I would imagine, have helped prepare you for some of those roles. Now, one of the movies, Right Before Your Eyes, I actually want to play a clip so people can get a chance, if they haven't seen the film yet, and it's now streaming on Pure Flix, so people will be able to watch it. But when you see you in action, it's very clear that this is something that you were built to do. So let's roll that clip, and then we'll talk a little bit about it here.
I traveled all this way, though, man. I'm here. Look at me. I'm standing right here.
Your mission was to protect your son from harm. And you did just that.
You're right, I did. And I don't want that to end. I want to be here. I want to be his father. I want to stay right here. Can't that change? Look, man, I spent my whole life trying to get a purpose and try and be a dad. I finally get it. And you're trying to take it away from me, man.
You're right, Ethan. You learned what your purpose is. Ethan, the father is going to let you talk to your boy one last time.
He's going to talk to me?
Okay, so that was Right Before Your Eyes, and people get a little lens into your character there. What's happening in that scene without spoiling too much of the film?
Oh, well, that's a difficult thing not to do there. So this is a story. This is a loosely based true story, and that is the most palpable scene and of the story. But it's about a journey of a man who is struggling with major demons and major alcoholism. He has a contingency. In order to be a part of his autistic son's life, he has to get clean and sober. So that's directly after he spends 90 days in a mission, a real mission called the Bethesda mission in Center City, Harrisburg. So he's been on a train this whole time, and he now has the go ahead to go see his son. So he he has a dream. The son hasn't spoken a word. Like, it literally, this was a true story. His son was 7 years old and didn't speak until, that's kind of a giveaway, but you know,
Wow.
the
No, I like
reality
it.
is, yeah, I mean, it's, it's a punch to the gut, and it's most people come away having to wipe their eyes, you know?
Well, and so you spoke about something there, having to this character having to overcome something that again you've overcome in your own life. So how did your own experience sort of inform how you performed in this role?
Yeah, no, there was a lot of channeling, the way that I grew up, and the things that I've dealt with in my own life. It was completely in my wheelhouse. And again, you know, you're a spiritual man and clearly a Christian, so it was a God intervention moment for me. And it's still to this day. I mean, I've moved on and done like 10 other acting jobs at a, you know, grand scale, but this is still the biggest thing. You know, I've been able to, you carry a film, and that's everybody's dream, right? Being number one on the call sheet for the first time in 20 years of acting. And it just so happened to align perfectly with who I am. So, you know, I'm a sober guy. I spent a lot of time, doing soul searching and therapy. And as a kid, I was the youngest of five. I was the youngest of four, and I have a brother that's younger than me. But we all, you know, we all have our demons, and we've all had to, you know, seek out fellowship. And so I just so happened to get sober in 1999. And I'm not a guy that went through a rehab or a mission, but it was very easy for me to channel a lot of my past to bring this life to life.
Well, and you mentioned there, I mean, obviously it's a dream to be able to carry a movie, be the lead, be the head of that. I mean, that's something that people dream of. And you've been working in Hollywood and around Hollywood for a long time now. I mean, 2 decades is a long time, and you're really hitting an amazing stride. You have a series that's coming up that's going to be really big that we're not going to dive into too much, but a lot of other things that are going on. What kept you going on that journey? Because I know you said before, a lot of people had voices, you know, they were getting their voices into your mind about what was possible when it came to Hollywood and acting. And we know that this is a really hard industry to break into. And I know there are people probably watching and listening that's their dream. They want to dive into it. But a lot of people would have given up before 19 or 20 years. What was it for you? And obviously it's paying off now, but that kept you going and really pushing toward that dream.
Uh, Three things. I've always studied. I've been a student of acting, and when you study, you pick up, you know, you pick up other people's stories. Like, I'm an autobiography reader, and I mean, there's faith in there too, but the reality is, like, there's a formula to this thing, and for men, it's very fortunate that, you know, to be 40, to be moving into my 40s and had a little bit of a resume in my 20s. Like, I got like a job here, you know, and there in my 20s. I got my SAG card in 2005. So that was a good sign. And my agent's been with me, the very same agent right there in Midtown Manhattan, since 2005. So there's that. There's the logistics of it. Like, do I still have a decent agent who's still sending me out? Do I still get auditions? So, you know, to not drive yourself insane, those things help. You know, I'm still in the game, but knowing full well the formula, and the formula for men, a lot of people start working, especially me. I kind of had a baby face for a long time. I'm starting to lose my hair. You know, the wife and the son and all that stuff helps with the aging. So I'm starting to move into a spot where I'm more marketable, and people are starting to listen because of my experiences and because of the pain, because life is hard. And you know, you walk into a room and you seem to own it, whether or not intuitively you know that's happening, if that makes sense. You know, there's
It
just a
does.
lot when you're fresh faced. People see that, they know it. You need to live a little in order to gain a lot more respect.
Well, and you've gone through some things. I mean, you talked obviously about overcoming addiction. You also went through something that is a parent's nightmare, the most unimaginable thing, and that was losing a child, your
Hmm.
daughter.
Hmm.
How did that impact? I know that this happened in your 30s when you lost
Yep.
her. How did that impact you, your family? And I know that's a big question to ask, but I know this is something you've spoken about, and how that changed your life.
Um, yeah, I've been asked this question a few times. I think people steer clear of it, but I'm okay to speak about it. The reality is, I feel a lot less afraid. I think that's when I really started. If we're talking about spirituality and God, that's when I started to get roles, Billy. Like I started to get a lot of roles. So there was just something, whether it was me, whether the fact I just became less afraid of, because when you go through something like that, something that alien yet human, there's very few things here on this earth that can rattle you. You know what I'm saying? A casting
Absolutely.
director that's 24 years old, not to disparage anybody or make assumptions, but I said it to my agency the other day, being around big movie stars isn't as scary when you've dealt with the life altering tragedy at that level. If you've dealt with trauma as much as the next person, all of a sudden you become part of a club that's, kind of unique, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. I mean, how did you and your wife journey through that? Because you were young, and again, it's a parent's
She was
worst
younger. She
nightmare.
was I was 36, so she was 30. She was 30. Um yeah, we tried again. It took some time, but yeah, it was a nightmare. I mean, I worked my side job. I was working washing cars still, from 26 to 20 to 36, I was washing cars. And it was a moment where, you saw the world just kept going, and people just keep going. And there was a benefit for us, and a lot of people supported us. And, obviously that helps. I leaned on people who had gone through it before, because that's how I know how to deal with stuff. But my wife and I, we leaned on each other, and we tried again. And I would be remiss if, the miracle that is my son, if I didn't say that he helped tremendously with that process of healing. And, I feel like I'm playing from behind because I had a daughter, man, and she was fully grown. And, we're definitely going to try again. I mean, there's nothing better. And that's what I've realized, chasing this acting dream. And it is a dream come true. It's a high class problem when you're struggling, but yet that there's something coming in for the first time in 20 years.
Yeah, I mean, and
My
you've been on a
insurance, all
journey.
this. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I'm starting to hit a little bit of a stride, and that's the reality of it. And it's great. But like, I never forget my wife and my son. They're the most precious things in my life, man. It just makes you appreciate what life is and what we're here to do. We're here to love each other, and we're here to learn from each other. And I choose to believe today that I'm going to see her again. I mean, she was too perfect for Earth. That's just the way I see it.
What you just spoke about too is, the things in life that are truly important. I mean, here you are, and it's interesting to hear you say that in the midst of ramping up success and seeing all of this come, you've got right before your eyes hitting right now. And I know you filmed that, a couple years ago, and it's really hitting now. And you've got this success, but you're speaking about what really matters in life, what is
Mm-hmm.
really important. And I think so many of us get caught up in the chase of something or something that we really want. And it's amazing to hear somebody like you talking about these things and talking about what really matters in the midst of experiencing that dream, right? And keeping that in
Yeah.
perspective. That's huge.
Yeah. Well,
It
I
really
mean,
is.
the life doesn't stop. Being a husband doesn't stop. Being a father on full time, virtual learning. I mean, she does most. God bless her. She does most of the learning part. But she does work still, and I'm on daddy duty from 3:30 to like midnight every night, man. And Carter, he sees that I'm on Amazon Prime because we look on Amazon Prime now, and he doesn't. To him, it doesn't mean anything. I had to set myself on fire to get him excited about me. Sometimes, he used to run around when I play guitar and sing with me. Now it's all about video games, and he's starting to find himself, the little individual that he is.
It's what
So,
they do. It's crazy,
what?
right? They
But they
become their
keep you
own
grounded.
person. They
They
do.
keep you grounded, right? I mean, you
They
have
do.
success, and I'm sure they know nothing about it. I mean, they know a little
They
bit,
couldn't
right?
care
But not
less. Yeah, they couldn't
right.
care less about anything. I could be like, "Oh, here's, the biggest celebrity in the world." They just, yeah, they don't, none of that really. But I love that because it keeps people grounded, and it doesn't matter whether it's Hollywood or media or whatever it is that somebody's dream is, right? That
Hmm.
you keep that perspective. Because I know for myself, I haven't always kept that perspective. I've sometimes chased things, and that consumes you. And I mean, you've faced a lot, you've gone through a lot. I love, there were some elements of your story that really stuck out to me. In 2011, when you were going to get roles, you were also going to work. You were in the academy. You were trying to become a cop, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong,
Yep.
but
No, it's
you
true.
start showing up to auditions in uniform, and suddenly you're getting cop roles. I mean, how many cop roles have you done over the years?
Well, the first one I got was Boardwalk Empire, and at that point, I think I had been in to see those casting people, I don't know, 8 or 9 times, and I walked in, and it was and they suggest you wear some sort of period piece. I walked in with my academy uniform on for a role that was hired to kill off Chalky White, episode 4. That's a huge hit. So that was really awesome, man. And that was my first time working in a studio and like looking around, like, how is this going to look? And it looked so real. Steiner Studio there in Brooklyn. And so again, it comes down to living life and going through painful, because that was painful. I was 32 years old, getting orders from people who hadn't really, some of them lived out of their parents' house. They were like 23 years old, because they took good tests. They became some of my staff sergeants. But then there were military people that were completely worthy of the utmost respect. My lieutenant was an Iraqi war veteran. And so it was a really, really valuable experience. And again, whether it's intuition or feeling the subconscious confidence that you get from painful experiences, I guess that could be what it was, man. I mean, the uniform looked real enough for the casting people to hire me that day. And yeah, that got me a lot of love, and it still does to this day.
So before we head out here, the last question really for you, because a lot of people are going to be finding out about you. They're going to be seeing some of the work you've done, but right before your eyes, among the Pure Flix audience, that's going to be a big introduction to who you are and to your acting. What is it for you as an actor who played a role in that film that really, again, had some personal connections? It was this first big, lead movie role for you. What are you hoping people take away from that movie, whether it be a lesson or something else along those lines?
There's a lot of the forgiveness element, because quite honestly, we live in a world, and especially with COVID, that is rife with disease, and there are a lot of people out there that don't believe addiction to be a disease. But I would do research on that. I really would. A lot of people I've seen could be the most stand-up people that you'd ever meet that just have an addiction, man. And it's an addiction of the mind. It's a hopeless disease for some, that have lost family, and they feel like they have nowhere to turn. That's the jumping off point in life. They can't imagine experiencing life with or without that, whatever it is, drug or alcohol. For me, it was alcohol, and I was there, and I prayed, and things got better for me, thank God. But I was delivered on a silver platter to a lot of really good people for that to happen. So the moral of the story for me is like, forgive yourself, forgive the people that are in your lives, whether you can continue to be a part of those lives. You can love people and forgive them from a distance. If there's toxic people in your life, you can love them, separate with love, and continue to love them and pray for them, whether you can be a part of their lives physically or not, especially right now, because none of us are physically a part of each other. It's a shame. Like, how many people have you hugged other than your family?
None. Yeah, it's really, it's been a tough year for people, and I think some of the issues you're talking about, people are struggling with those issues too. I mean, there's increases in all different kinds of struggles that are going on. Well, listen, I so appreciate you and sharing your story, and everybody who's watching, check out Right Before Your Eyes. It's streaming right now on Pure Flix. Thanks again for coming on today.
Billy, you're the man. Thanks for having me, bro. Thanks for reaching out.